begins. What is up, and welcome once again to the Lions Carnivore podcast. Dan right here, and I have the pleasure of finally having a sit down with the man himself, Jonathan from Carnivore Muscle. Welcome aboard, sir.
Hey Dan, what's good? Thanks for having me. It's a delightful setup you have here with all the little different things and a picture of you in the background. I'm definitely not AI generated. Definitely not.
Definitely not. It was me. I actually hand drew all of this. This is what Carnivore does to us. It just enlightens us, that sixth sense.
Yeah, we get these extra little subtle little skills. So I think, yeah, I've got a few skills myself actually through Carnivore, like telepathy. That's a really good one.
I love it. That's how we connected, obviously. You know?
Yeah.
So you're very fascinating. I have to start off with that. You know, I've been following your channel, been listening to a lot of your interviews. You bring a special insight to this carnivore community. Your kind of acumen of lifting, nutrition, it brings a great perspective to this. And I wanted to pick your brain on this because, you know, back in the day, I used to, do weights and whatnot. And I used to know the importance of every macronutrient, everything. But then I stepped away from all that. And this is where you come in, and you have to enlighten me, because how did you find carnivore? How did you pivot from the norm of bodybuilding, muscle building, of eating carbs, like nonstop carbs, and then kind of circulating and circumventing proteins and fats, but your ideology has shifted, isn't it? And just let us know how you did it.
Yeah, so if I'm honest, I started off doing a very standard gym bro diet: chicken, broccoli, rice, with accompaniments, meaning pizzas, sometimes 2 a day, a big bag of Haribo, so maybe a pound of Haribo after the workouts each day. It's still high protein, animal food based diet, so whey protein shakes, chicken breasts, but I didn't really eat much beef or anything like that. Not many eggs. Effectively, at one point, I was eating 300 grams of protein, 1,000 grams of carbs, and about 150 grams of fat per day. And it was quite effective. I did gain weight, but the quality of the weight wasn't quite there. And I was always interested in the idea of body composition. What do you need to do to yield X, Y, Z outcome? I was noticing more and more online that everyone has a different approach. So I thought, well, whatever I do is going to probably be different to everyone else's. So why not just tackle it myself and try and find out what the best thing is? I had various health issues. We can go into them a bit if you want today. But to start, for the intent of starting the carnivore diet, I had a lot of digestive distress, acid reflux, a lot of inflammation directly linked to, I guess you could say diet. So I was eating a lot of sugar, a lot of glycation happening in the body. I was aging even quicker than I am now, which is quite incredible. And I got up to a weight of 125 kilos. Then I started to work at the leading health food store in England, down in the south. So not Holland and Barrett or iHerb, or was it GSN or whatever it is, whatever you guys have out there, or GNC. It's a completely different thing. It's a private sort of business. And it was primarily not an animal food. It was primarily a carnivorous anti-diet place, I guess you could say. So I guess you say plant-based, I guess you could say. But what I was noticing was most of the people that came in there never got better. They're buying these products, spending $200, $300, $400 equivalent each month on different supplements and therapies, but it wasn't doing the job. And they're you're looking for the nutrition chart, the labels, and saying, oh, walnuts, Brazil nuts, oh, there's all selenium. Got my 100% in there. Brilliant. 5 of those a day. All this extra stuff might need to supplement B12 because I don't eat any meat because meat's bad and it clogs your arteries and all this sort of thing. I sort of noticed people getting more and more ill. I was came from a background of not, that way of eating, but definitely more animal food included. Actually, I say before that, I actually tried a vegetarian diet for 3 days, and it was catastrophic. My digestion was trash. My mood was trash. My skin was dry. My bowel movements were disgusting, if I'm honest. And that told me, well, if my body was naturally meant to do that, why would I have such a hard time transitioning? It doesn't make sense. And obviously, there's different health issues, but at the age of 21 when I tried that, I wasn't really going to get anything more from it, especially when it is so bad, So anyway, 2 months into managing the health food store, I decided to become carnivorous, and it wasn't something I was particularly well versed about. It's more of a case of, well, what did I do in the past that worked? So I've been bodybuilding since 2012, and my first diet, funny enough, was, I believe, 5 months straight of 5 cans of tuna a day. No lie, 5 cans of tuna every day, 5 months, and maybe 1 or 2 boiled eggs each day if I felt lucky. 2 hours of cardio a day, split up an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening. Working most nights each week, going to college twice per week. Also having another job during the day as well. So I was managing a lot of stuff and going to the gym 6 times a week, plus the 2 cardio sessions each side of the day. I wasn't getting any better, and what I did actually hear it was mercury toxicity, and that was devastating. So for those that don't know watching this, I actually live with autism, or autistic spectrum disorder, and it's quite challenging at times. Things can be overwhelming. I'm fortunate and also unfortunate that I can communicate quite well. I'm not stereotypical of a autistic person that you might see in terms of out there in the wild, I guess you could say. I'm not sure Cooper. I can appear quite normal if I mask myself in a certain way. But that does have a lot of issues with it. So if we look at nutrient deficiencies, you can see, autistic spectrum disorder, nutrient profiling, genetic factors, everything says towards me eating more red meat. Iron deficiency is very common. Leaky gut is very common. Low B12, low folate, different blood markers, raised immunological responses, elevated cortisol levels, all these sort of things that someone might typically have. I did live with, or I do live with at times. But I found a carnivorous diet definitely much better in terms of digestion, gaining lean muscle tissue, staying leaner. Funny enough, I actually went to Lanzarote on holiday a couple of months back, and I'm someone that's been very diligent with tracking their macros and nutritional intake. I've been doing it every day for 10 years, even on Christmas Day. I don't ever not do that. I might have to estimate it if I'm eating out in public, but I'll roughly have a good idea of what each amount of food is. Anyway, on holiday, I was still carnivorous for the most part, apart from 4 meals, I think. And I actually lost about 4 kilos or 9 pounds. And that was on holiday. And I wasn't exactly, doing runs or sprints or anything, because I walk with a stick. I'm physically disabled. So it sort of said to me, well, a carnivore diet to gain a massive amount of muscle is hard, but it's not hard in the sense of getting to the natural genetic limitations that someone might have. So my limitations are well blown past. I'm not natural. I'm not a unenhanced athlete. I've always been open about that. So my needs are a lot higher than most people. Therefore, my food needs to be a lot higher or greater. Therefore, I lost weight because I was eating to satiety. So the carnivore diet for me has been very easy in terms of allowing me to manage my body composition, in terms of fat to protein ratio, or percentage, I guess you say, and just stay lean. So that told me I'm going to have to find other ways to do it. So my carnivorous diet is what I advocate for the most part or promote is a mixed animal foods diet. I'd say at least 70% ruminant meat, so beef or lamb, things like that. And the rest can be whatever you like, ideally from the animal kingdom. But you should pay attention to your hunger cues, your satiety mechanisms. If something tastes bitter, sour, off, you don't have an appetite for it, you're probably not meant to eat it. But it doesn't mean you might not be able to eat it later on when you might need whatever nutrients might be in that food profile. So for me, my diet is pretty much aligned the same. And I'm currently 3 weeks out from a bodybuilding competition, competing in England and the UK. And I'll be competing against other athletes like me. And I'm doing it on a carnivorous diet. I'm probably the only bodybuilder out there that's not starving hungry right now. I'm eating 430 grams of protein, 30 grams of carbs or up to, which is through dairy, things like that, eggs maybe, and also 160 grams of fat, which is quite low for me, but I'm trying to get very, very lean here. So you have to make bigger jumps to make bigger sort of improvements sometimes.
That's what I wanted
Yeah.
to ask, Jonathan,
Mm.
on that. Like for someone like me with carnivore, I had an eating disorder. I couldn't stop eating all the sugars and whatnot. Now I'm at a level where I know my signals, right? I know when I'm hungry. Like it's innate right now. I'm in tune. But someone that is in bodybuilding in the competition, how are your cues during the day? Is it something that you have to just a little bit more force yourself to eat, or you condition yourself? All right, at this time, I know I'm going to be hungry. I have to fit in all these macronutrients, or is it something else?
Okay, so my approach is quite mixed and it's quite individually dependent.
Mhm.
I have to eat a massive amount of food to maintain my weight relative to what most people do. Because my comorbidities, so for anyone who doesn't know, I live with autism spectrum disorder, chronic fatigue syndrome, CRPS, which is the most painful disease known to man or condition known to man. Worse than childbirth, worse than cancer, worse than arthritis, worse than fibromyalgia. It's been measured, and I've had brain activity measured, and I produce all the symptoms of it basically. So that has a massive toll on my body in terms of my mitochondrial function. In order to get past that, you have to put more in, unfortunately. So I did a video maybe a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago. I think it's called something like Carnivore Protein Guide 101, and outline all the conditions where someone might actually need more protein than other people. And the funny thing is, by default of having more protein, my satiety is much greater, which means for me, dieting is extremely easy compared to most people. Also because I find that your blood glucose levels are more regulated, your gut health is a bit better. And also, I mean, if I was to eat what I need to eat to maintain my weight now, I'll be eating nearly maybe a third at least, I'd say a third or more volume of food, which means my body's going to struggle to digest that, which means it takes energy away from my brain, which I need to do my jobs and things that I have to do. So I'm at a state now where I think I'm at the kind of peak of what I can physically achieve physically. And I will say this to people out there, because I know people are going to go in the comments and say, oh, but bodybuilding is not healthy. And I say, I'm still probably more healthy than you, for one. But the other thing as well is I do this for me because I can't do anything else. I can't ride a bike. I can't walk for a long period of time. I can't play table tennis. I can't play pool with my dad. I can't swim anymore and move my feet. I'm extremely limited in my physical capabilities. That doesn't mean I can't go to the gym though and sit in a machine for a few minutes, lift carefully under a certain training method that I use, then go home and rest and use my 55 plus recovery hacks each given week to allow me to recover from what I'm currently doing. So yeah, it's I'd say it's certainly a lot easier. However, perhaps in terms of the holistic side of things, the physical mental toll of dealing with pain, anxiety, sometimes autistic spectrum symptoms, it's very challenging in that regard. So I think if I wasn't doing carnivore, I wouldn't be bodybuilding anymore, if I'm honest.
I am beyond impressed right now at what you're explaining and all the trials that you have to go over and go through, and how you're just staking your flag on it. I'm just, for those that are judgmental of, oh, the bodybuilding, why do you just explained it perfectly. It's whatever works for the individual. um, you know, Having this carnivorous kind of lifestyle, you have a lot more energy than your standard American dieter here in the West. Like, I know for me, when I was eating that way, sluggish, I don't want to do nothing. 3 months into carnivore, I had this overpowering energy, and you have to exert it. You can't just have that potential energy build up on you, or you'll go crazy. So for you to utilize it in bodybuilding, and also to help with your CRPS, the digestion system has gotten better. Like, that's where I want to pivot here.
Mm.
Before carnivore, were the digestive issues part of the supplementation from like a GNC that we have here, that it's to that point where we have been conditioned that we need supplements? even though we get it from something that's nutrient dense, like a nice steak, ribeye, whatever the case is, but they push this narrative. You need to have supplements. You need to have it unless you really do. And that I understand. Like medically, sometimes we do need supplements, but someone who's healthy, who has the wherewithal to go and buy something nutrient dense, and on top of that, the doctors are saying, yeah, but not only that, you have to start buying more supplements at a GNC.
Yeah. Yeah, the supplement things are quite an interesting one. What's your question, sorry, specifically?
So to me, was with the GI issues, the gastrointestinal issues.
Yeah.
Was it more towards the pills?
I would say it's more the mass of food. I mean, when you're trying to gain muscle, you have to inevitably eat a lot of food. The problem with just drinking your food is that it adds food volume, because for food to be drunk, it has to have more water in it. Water's going to be quite a dense sort of material per liter, for example, per volumetric measure. So I was probably eating 3 or 4 kilos of food every day. Now I'm eating about 2-ish, something like that. So it's half the amount of mass that has to go from my digestive system. And I think some of the supplements I was using back then were not ideal in some cases. Back then, 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was, a lot of it was proprietary blends that weren't tested properly. So now we're fortunate now we have more accessibility to measure our blood markers, notice deficiencies, get tested with different things, checks. We're more aware of the data that we have on our own bodies, health metrics. So therefore we can tailor our supplement approach to what we actually do or don't need. There's a lot of instances where I know this is what every carnivore person says out there with a bigger channel than me on YouTube. You don't need supplements on a carnivore diet. Yeah, you might not, but most people benefit from them and most people do use them. Because I speak to these people, I know these people, I've read thousands of anecdotes online, I've worked with hundreds of clients. Most people do use supplements. Now, the problem is people say, oh, there's no deficiencies. There may not be a deficiency, but how are you measuring that? Are you looking at a blood marker? Is that serum magnesium? Is that tissue-specific magnesium? I've recently just suggested to my girlfriend Jo a supplement called, I think it's called L-theamine, something like that, All-theamine, a Theamax product by, I'm not referring, but it's something I've used and found helpful. But people with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome find that quite beneficial. But you're not going to find a measure out there that tests how much B1 is in someone's brain. But if you take a supplement, you find, oh, I feel better now. You might have something to it. Right. But then what you do to work out if it's a placebo effect is you take it out. You take it out. How would you feel? How would you sleep? How would you train? How would you recover? How does your brain work? Then you add it back in. You do the measure again. So you do washout periods. So what I currently do right now in terms of my health interventions to manage recovery, support digestion, cognitive health, energy levels, sleep, whatever it might be, is hundreds of different mini experiments I do. I do blood testing every roughly 8 to 10 weeks privately, and also through my hospital as well locally, just through different tests they might do anyway. I try to keep myself in the best nick possible. There's a few sort of key sort of markers. I'm by no means a blood marker expert, but looking at things like thyroid hormone, HPTA axis, cortisol levels, sometimes they can be useful tests, sometimes they can't. HSCRP, so a specific CRP measurement, liver and kidney enzymes, and anything beyond that, if there's symptoms which suggest something is perhaps bad, then you find the test to measure what the problem is. Because if you say, oh, I have symptoms of a low thyroid, your thyroid hormone levels are low in that test, but you're only looking at one number, for example, T4. What doesn't tell you a picture? It just says your body's producing something, but it's not converting. So you have to have the whole picture when it comes to analyzing blood markers and blood work. So it's no good just saying, my testosterone level is 1,000. Is that good or not on Google? What is the rest of it like? What is it converting to? Because I know, you probably know Dr. Sean Baker, he was having his test done a few years back. And his testosterone level was, don't quote me, I can't remember the number, but it was, say, a quarter of the maximum normative range. So maybe it's like 200 out of 1,000. Then someone will say, oh, he's got low testosterone. We look at the bloke, he's nearly as big as me per inch of height, and he's a natural athlete, and he's competed and successfully in indoor rowing and won World records. Something here is probably not the full picture. So then he might be a low E2 estrogen converter. He might have high expression of IGF-1 within his muscle tissues. You don't know. These tests haven't been done. So a lot of these things that we have are good spot checks in a sense, but to really understand health, you have to understand the subjective having and the symptomology that present. So when I'm working with clients, we've got a lady right now, lovely lady called Kimberly Russell. She's in the chat. She lives with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. She's been a carnivore for like 5 to 7, maybe 8 years. Can't remember. She's in the best shape of her life right now. She lost a lot of weight on her own, but now we're just fine tuning things. So I recommended her a little supplement protocol. Very bizarre things that you probably wouldn't have heard of, like agmatine sulfate. Typically, it's a bodybuilding supplement people use for vasodilation to increase pumps in the gym and sort of performance. But it's also a mild NDMA agonist, I guess you could say. So it can actually reduce pain levels. So someone that's living with joint hypermobility, EDS, lymphedema, perhaps things like that, things which cause inflammation and pain. If someone had arthritis, that could be a really useful tool. It might mean that she's able to manage her medication easier, spend less than that sort of thing. She might be able to use less pain meds. She might have to not be so tight with her like recovery methods because she's used something which has helped bridge that gap. So sometimes these things can be very useful, but what you're thinking of these studies is they're not always done in such a manner which is useful to the general public. So, for example, if we're looking at a strength training study or a creatine study, caffeine, whatever you want, any study you want that's done at a uni or a sports science center, you'll find that the majority of participants in that study will be the mates of the guys that are enrolled into the program. They're probably going to be fit people anyway.
Right.
And also, by default, that emits the 21% of non-responders to training that do exist. So these studies don't point to a lot. So I think for some people, if they're at a point where it's safe and efficacious in terms of cost to add a supplement in, by all means, do it. Obviously, contact your physician sort of thing. But understand there also might be confounding factors which prevent you from understanding if it's actually made a beneficial impact or not. One example of that might be that month a family relative passed, you might have less energy. Oh, the supplement didn't work. Or maybe it did work in the background. Maybe you just had to run it for another week. So it's an ongoing process, and that's why I'm not a fan of supplements for the most part, because once you add it in and take it out, you can't always know if it's been giving you a benefit or not. But I think supplements should be added in best practice, in case by case kind of individual circumstances, and only in a sense when everything else is already optimized. So if you think a supplement, if you got all the best supplements in the world to help you with a certain symptomology, and they give you 10% benefit, but you're missing 50% by not opening your curtains in the morning, you're
Right.
picking up pennies and dropping pounds sort of thing. So yeah, that's kind of my approach, but hopefully that answers your question.
It did. And you briefly touched on something that caught my attention as well, on studies, right? I don't know if you had the luxury of watching the Cholesterol Code just as yet, but it's a great documentary. It's on Amazon, and it's like, once you have all of this information to showcase to the public, in which they did have the individuals that made the documentary to provide that cholesterol is beneficial to the American Heart Association, it's pick and choose. It's like they declined it, by the way. They say, no, we're not going to showcase this. It's like the closer we are to showcasing to everyone the truth, we get censored right away. And it's like checking off all the boxes when you're speaking truth. I feel with Carnivore, it opens your mind. It opens your being. There's a sixth sense where you start understanding motives. You start understanding people. And you want to become influential. At what point is it to the point where you're overstepping, trying to help someone? And where is it where you have to kind of lean back a little bit and allow people just to do their own thing? Because I'm at a point right now that I just want to help everyone, but I know I have to police myself. But how hard to me, it's hard. It's hard keeping truth in. How do you work with that? Like with your coaching and everything, like how are your steps in order to help someone?
Yeah, so a funny story with regards to my coaching. I had someone that I consulted with a few weeks back, maybe 3-4 weeks back, and they had cancer. And long story short, they're using exercise as a modality to improve their mental health to the point of their own detriment, meaning overtraining, basically. That was leading them to feel stressed, tired, anxious, fatigued. But the only time they had joy, almost by the sound of things, was when they're training in the gym. But the thing is that she wasn't creating these objective goals which allowed her to progress towards. She was just going to the gym for the sake of endorphins, feeling good going to the gym. I sort of said to her, well, what you need to do is track your workouts, record your form. You take a video in the gym if you can. Be one of those tripod people that annoy the crap out of me. Find other things and pleasures within your training to work towards. Because she had no real end goal. She just said, I want to lose some weight that I put on. But it's like, yeah, but why? I did the old psychoanalysis sort of thing. At the end of the day, I'm still waiting for her to get back to me. But I basically offered her to coach her for free because I sympathized with her situation. I knew she had children. And I thought, well, if I can install a lower level of anxiety to her, if she's anxious with her children or something like that, people are how people are. Your feelings towards life adapt to what's around you. If you're around miserable people, you'll probably end up miserable. So I saw myself, okay, that one could equal 3 people, perhaps. And so I offered to coach her, and she's not got back to me still. But the thing is, that's what I don't like about giving out advice off the cuff or help support off the cuff. Because it'll often be followed up by, oh, but you said in this podcast this, or something else. And it doesn't always match up with what kind of what I've kind of said and what I would always naturally suggest as best practice. So in that kind of instance, what you can do as content creators like yourself, Dan, is create content that helps people, educational content. So when I'm uploading my videos, pretty much all of them now say category, style, whatever niche, it's education. People choose to be educated. Not everyone wants to be educated, and that's fine. That's their own prerogative. But in the end of the day, that's why we have something called human evolution, which is why the best right to the top and the bottom don't. And it sounds harsh, but that's the true reality. We can't fight nature. Nature doesn't want us all to be here because, illnesses, the idea of like destroying the planet or whatever it is, nature wants equilibrium. It wants to go in this natural cycle, and things that get in the way of it, it will knock out. The same was true with, producing children. There's millions and millions of little people go around, or potential people, but only one of them does the job. So, we have to see it in that sense and not squander our abilities, because there's a lot of people out there I see, and I'm like, you've got so much potential here. Like I can see you're able to achieve a lot of things. But what we have to do is just flip that switch that will change in your mind. And sometimes you have to be influential in the sense of my thumbnail might have a picture of me doing a pose in it. Oh, he looks good. He follows carnivore diet. I could be like that. And it's like, yeah, you could potentially. It's possible. Absolutely. But unless you put that image out there, people will never see it. So you, Dan, I know you're obviously a resistance trainer as well. Your thumbnail was to be muscle man and get fit with me, Dan, and this is my men's lifestyle, and this is how I approach life, and I maintain being stoic and things like that. So that's kind of that's what I would personally suggest to someone. Put the information out there, give as much as you can, and people will take what they're going to take. And when people want more, so once you get people to that halfway point, then they can push for whatever memberships, programs, services that you sell, sort of thing. So that's my approach. If you want to get the human standard up to an equilibrium, that's good. That's free. But if you want to get people beyond that, And that's where the elite that will be able to access that information, that services, that ebook, that program can get there. So yeah, I'll probably rile up the comment section a little bit, but yeah, human evolution does exist. Natural argument is quite strong for the most part, and we can't fight nature essentially. So
I like
yeah.
that. No, you nailed it on that, because we want to evolve. We want to get to that next level, but work needs to be done. It can't just happen. That's why, in order to find this lifestyle, we had to go through so many different journeys. And this is a great comment here. I find my brain fog is clearing massively with less inflammation, cortisol, and improved health eating carnivore. I think this is massive right now because of the brain fog. Like I was just alluding to it, that so many people want to get to that next level and they can't. You're hindered. You're handcuffed with what society has, how they have implemented their structure, which is perfect, by the way. Honestly, the way how everything is set up for us to fail is scientific. It's excellent how they have it. But in order to break free from this matrix, you have to do things that are uncommon to the normal person, but common to the fact how it was 200 years ago. 200 years ago, there was no supermarkets. You're out, you got to feed your family. You got to go out hunting, primal. You have to do what was necessary. Now you have these bliss points where it's engineered, where you cannot, for someone normal, and I'm going to use myself as an example, I was addicted. I was a slave to that way of eating. I could not get away from it. I had to be on my couch when I would leave work and be overly indoctrinated over and over, watching programs, eating my Doritos, my whatever the case is, cereal, and just withering away. And you're 100% right. It was that potential. Like when you just said, you see so many people and you're like, man, they have so much to offer, but they choose. I think that is the massive point here, is the choice. Why is it so difficult? Like, I know I keep staying at that base, but why is it so difficult?
It's difficult, Dan. I mean, you elaborated the point perfectly. It's difficult because me, Jonathan from England, you, Dan, from, imagine, US. Yeah, US. Sorry. Just think, one company, whoever it is that makes Doritos, potato chips, was it 30 million per year they spend on trying to make that food more addictive?
Mm-hmm.
That's one company that sells one product. Mm-hmm. Now think about chocolate. Think about Coca-Cola. Think about, effectively, we're two people in two different countries trying to battle our best efforts with billions of dollars worth of spend. It's hard work. It's hard work. So people say to me, I'm addicted to food. I don't think, oh, you're weak. I think, oh, you just haven't found the path yet. You haven't found the click. You haven't found the reason. So in my I guess experience, I'm 30 years old. I found that reason very early, which is good in a sense. It might mean for the next 50, 60 years, I'll be able to stave off a lot of things that people that perhaps start this 70 or 80 years old that wouldn't be able to. So, yeah, I mean, I imagine you're a couple of years older than me, maybe, but it's good to see other people in the space, especially men in the space, because I think not a lot of men talk about the topics you talk about in your channel, which are very unique, and it's always like, positive stories like, I had diabetes, now I don't, lost all this weight. But talking about this thing is important because we have to understand, what is it the people that struggle behind with all this, unused, lost potential, So I think that's an important point to mention is we have to certainly gather our thoughts and get together in a way that is cohesive as best as we can. And also, at the same time, not feel guilty because not everyone will always take our advice. The other day I was in a live stream, I was listening to someone in these funny situations where I shouldn't really say who it is. I can't say who it is, but basically they're eating loads and loads of fat each day to reduce type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. I was like, why? Because they were chasing ketones. They're looking at the wrong metric. It always comes down to goals, Dan. It always comes down to goals. They had the idea in mind, but they didn't think about it. They didn't think, how am I going to measure my progress to reach these goals? So I'm a big fan of, advocate of, tracking things, getting the right markers in place, journaling, logging something.
Yep.
With my health conditions, I obviously log a lot of what I do. Now my clients are watching this, some of them. They'll know the new spreadsheets that I put out, like the check-in sheets. Now imagine that times about 4 guys. That's what I do every day. I've got all these things to track in my head, because I'm someone that wants that extra 1%. I'm not settling for not having it. When I know it's just a little investment in time, like 1% over many, many years will add up. So
that's empowering. 100%. It's important to journal, important to log. I do the same exact thing. And I know I do something that it's frowned upon, but I check my weight every morning, go on the scale. And I have a log from when I started this. No, I apologize. No, way before, because I would yo-yo diet. When I started this, I was very close to 250 pounds. I'm very close to 180, right? Almost to my goal. And that's fine. But some days I'm like, I step on the scale and I'm like, oh man, what am I doing wrong? Like, what am I doing wrong? I'm not getting to that point. But then I look at the logbook and see where I came in. And you're right. It's all incremental. The little 1% at the end of the day, they all add up. And I look back of May 16th of 2024, where I was right before taking on this journey when I had a huge health scare. And I guess that's the other point, where sometimes you have to get through a crossroad in order to make the decision. Sometimes for people to make a decision A or B when they're healthy, they normally continue on track with what they know. But when you're hit where the fork in the road is life or death, I think you're willing to take on anything. And that is the point where I know I have to be careful with what I say, but I love truth. Thing is, when you're at that crossroads of life and death, we become so vulnerable to advice, especially in the pharmaceutical realm, in the medical realm, where you're at their disposal because you want to live. Honestly, I don't know why else we're here. We're here to progress, evolve, and live. Now, when they tell you, okay, you can live, but you got to take these pills for the rest of your life, 9 out of 10 people will always say yes, whatever's necessary. Jonathan, I kid you not, when I had my GI issue that actually brought me to this, the GI doctor said, okay, we got to fix your microbiome. You got to buy this probiotic. You have to get it online. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I look it up in front of him. Guess how much that was? That bottle was $200. $200.
Yeah.
That's a meal.
Yeah.
That's 2 weeks
meals.
worth.
It's a lot
2
of good
weeks
meals.
Easy.
Oh yeah.
But I was susceptible. Whatever I need to do to stop the bleeding in the muffler section, got to do it. I bought it. And thank goodness I rerouted and I found Carnivore. But something else I want to really touch on. I'm about to be 45 next month. And what occurs here in the States is the older you get, the lower men's testosterone occurs. It's natural. It's how it is. That's it. They spoon feed us all the time. I got to be honest. This is almost 2 years that I'm doing this. My testosterone levels, how I feel, everything. I have not felt like this since I was in my teens. At that point, this is where I want to kind of dive into this kind of subject. Why haven't more nutritionalists guided their clients to more of a carnivore lifestyle to boost their testosterones and endocrine systems than just going with the status quo, which they already know the end results?
Yeah, it's tried and tested, isn't it? The standard Western diet, it's battle proven, and it's lost the battle tragically, absolutely, to its total detriment of the male species. If I'm honest, what I can say is a lot of the nutritionists, holistic naturopaths, dietitians, when they complete their graduation or their graduate program, they have the option of agreeing or signing up to a certain affiliation, accreditation, association, something which says, my name is John Smith and I took this course and I'm qualified nutrition, and that means I'm part of this association. That association is affiliated with close ties to perhaps the FDA, or if in the UK, the Food Standards Agency, the public health guidelines, the Eat Well Plate, the food guidelines, the whatever it is now, the triangle thing, the pyramid, that's been probably put in a better position, in my opinion. What's happened is they've said, well, you can only join our club if you agree to our rules.
Right.
And our rules are, we promote this.
Yep.
But what you'll also see is no association wants to ever be proven wrong, even when the scientific literature does exist. For how sparse it is on low-carb ketogenic diets in terms of long-term health outcomes, it's still vastly, greatly superior to what was otherwise being used. And I'm conflicted with this myself, and I had this same kind of mini discussion with Professor Bart Kay maybe a week or so ago. So in the carnivore space, the only nutritionists that I know of significant influence, meaning 5K subs or above, for what it's worth. I don't consider myself an influencer, guys. I consider myself an educator. So, but yeah, I'm talking about influence here, following, I guess you could say. Me, Professor Bart Kay, and Pim Johnson, who's his girlfriend, partner. Everyone else has some online course that's like 4 levels below, basically, or they're a dietitian. Of all of us three, none of us are connected to the Association of Nutritionists or the Registration of Nutritionists in the UK, where we might have passed our qualification, because we wouldn't be able to provide our service because we were under the contract constraints of these food authorities, these nutrition guidelines. What's also important to mention is they won't actually admit when they're wrong. So the World Health Organization retracted a lot of its statements on red meat and cancer, perhaps 5 to 7, maybe 8 years ago. Can't remember the exact date. But no one heard about it. Wasn't in the news. Even though it is a absolutely mind-blowingly new piece of evidence or information. Oh, the study showed it does actually make a difference if you eat red meat. I'm sorry about that. Or the food questionnaires, for what it's worth. I studied advanced statistical analysis at university alongside as a module in my human nutrition degree, and what I can say is the studies do not always add up, and not every study that you read online has been adjudicated properly. Now, a lot of studies, believe it or not, actually get thrown out. They'll create the pilot study, so I want to create this thing to test these things to see what happens, but we can do it on a small scale of like 5 people or a rat or a dog or whatever it is, they might go through that. They might be a bit unsure. They might say, "Oh, might not translate to humans. Might not support the conflicts of interests of my studies. Big pharma, big food, whatever it might be." But then they'll go through it. They'll do the study, spend thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Then they won't have the outcome they want. So what they won't do is they won't publish the paper, which means the papers that are out there are only the ones that have been published based on conflicts of interest. But what we can look for good data is if they created the pilot study, they've then created or performed the actual study, but prior to that point, they've submitted to the journal article paper, the journal, I don't know, Nature, Science journal, whatever it is, And they said, we are going to do this study. This is what we are testing. This is how we're going to test it. This is when we want to publish the data, the results, the outcomes. If they do that, you can be pretty sure that they're being open and honest. They're saying, I'm a scientist. I have a question. I want to know the answer. And this is a study I'm putting forward to test that theory. And that's how you can rely on what is a good study. Outside of that, the nutrition science is so sparse. And it took me absolutely years of listening to Bart Kay to understand that. Despite all his lectures, all his mentorship, along with Harris Parnos, I didn't get it. And it never added up for some reason. And then it finally did. And I was like, yeah, there really is no nutrition science. Very little. So yeah, that's why we have to perform these studies ourselves. We are N=1, our own personal anecdotes. And for interviews like this, and I know Dave Mack has done like nearly 2,000 interviews or something. I've been on there like twice. That's 2,000 real people that are out there right now eating a way that we are eating similar to. That is a big study. Then we'll see, you can refine it down, say, oh, which of these people have a financial incentive? Okay, maybe a quarter of them, maybe. Then narrow it down again. Which of these people are just bored and they want to talk about whatever diet they're doing that week? Well, maybe a few less. But yeah, you can look at the outcome and say, there's got to be at least 1,500 people on Dave Mack's channel that have honestly tried and tested this diet and found it very effective. So yeah, that's my take on statistics, science, and nutrition regulation and food authorities.
No, bullseye, man. I honestly think you're onto something. And I think the best studies are us, just like you said, like with Dave Mack, thousands of people. Yeah, podcasts like this and so many others. Doctors that are stepping outside of the box, Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Berry, Dr. Baker, that they're shedding light on this nefarious world of, whatever is favorites within their pockets on the studies. If it works for them, if you're in line, meaning they will utilize scare tactics, their fear mongering, where you don't have the freedom to do actual studies. And again, I'm going to refer back to the cholesterol code that they did it. They had to raise money. It was like some guy like you and me. He raised $200,000. He got a cardiologist, bona fide. It took, I believe it was like 2 years worth of factual data. And the American Heart Association said, absolutely, no problem. You could, present it. The night before, they call him up. They're like, you know what? We're going to scratch you off. Why? Because it took them the night of to really look at this and say, this is going to mess us up financially. People are going to start getting better. If we give them the green light to move forward with this presentation, then it's going to cause doubt. And what if our house of cards begins to crumble? Nope, sorry, you're off the list. That's, again, I don't like cursing. I don't, it's messed up, man. That's effed up. I apologize.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we can't just drop the words on the floor and say, oh, that's it. Now the action begins. The action starts with individuals like yourself, me, people in the chat, people watching, listening to this, taking that next step of, all right, I have not been feeling good on these medications or whatever the case is. Again, this is not medical advice or anything of that nature. You have to consult with your own doctor and whatnot and do what's best for you. Guys, like that's the whole thing. You have to know who you're looking at and that reflection back to you and know who you are. I think that's the big thing, Jonathan. I think a lot of us don't know who oneself is anymore. They allow the puppeteers to pull the strings. I have to do this. I got to wake up at this time. I have to go to bed at this time. I have to eat this. I have to watch this show. The media is telling me to be careful with the wars and this and that. I got to live in fear, as opposed to stepping out and say, all right, you know what? This is going to work for me. Like, that's why I think with Carnivore, and that's what I wanted to ask, you have gone through so many different diets and whatnot. Have you ever felt this optimal with any of the previous ways of eating throughout your life and your competitive career?
not remotely. If I had to pick, if I had to go back in time and say, so I still started carnivore 6.5 years ago. I actually found out through Bart K about 8 years ago, a long time ago. I would say, going from whatever crap I was eating at the start, I'd probably say intermittent fasting would be the first thing, or time restricted eating. Not because I think there's some magic to it, like autophagy or anything super duper. I think it's more just the fact of I've got to sustain my body to the best of my ability. I've got this much opportunity to do it in. How am I going to do it the most efficient way? And you're not going to find someone doing it the most efficient way eating lettuce and carrots. They're going to be eating beef burgers, eggs, fish, nutrient-dense food. So that's probably the sort of way I'd go about it if I went back in time. Nowadays, it's not feasible at all. I can't eat enough food in a day to do it in one meal. It's impossible. I spoke, Professor Bart Cave had said in the video the other day, he's like, he got asked, oh, should everyone do OMAD, one meal a day? And he's like, yeah, for the vast majority of people, but there are some exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to be one of those exceptions because I have to eat so much food, because I have to sustain such a high output. It's just inevitable. But what I will say is the vast majority of people in a carnivore diet currently right now that I've ever spoken to, heard of, or seen, they're eating about 2 meals per day.
Right.
For men, for women, it's about 2 to 2.5. So it might be like a couple of boiled eggs and a slice of cheese, then 2 steaks, something like that. So yeah, it's interesting cutting through the noise a bit, and there's so many perks as well. Well, when you get to the supermarket, I go in there, I'm out in like 5-10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything else to look at because the rest of it isn't food to me. So,
You brought up something interesting here, autophagy, and I fit into that, right? Like the 1 meal, 2 meals a day.
Yeah,
because I found that rhythm of when I'm hungry, when I'm not, and it's very liberating. But when you really go into it with fasting, and I do it inadvertently, I don't even know that I'm fasting. People will say, hey, what are you having for lunch? What are you having, after work? Let's go grab some beers and whatnot. I'm like, no, I'm okay. I'm good. Or we'll go to the pub and I'll have some seltzers.
yeah,
and I'm good. But the autophagy, I think that is so key. And I feel like it's a little bit of what reverse aging is all about, which people poo-poo it. They're like, no, it's unreal. It doesn't happen. I have seen it where when people go on carnivore, they look younger. Like how I got onto this was my brother. My brother was severely overweight. And all of a sudden I see him and he looks amazing. He lost so much weight and he looked younger. But unfortunately, he suffers from the same thing that I do. And he let the devil in. He let a little bit of the sugar back in, and it's a wrap. He's working himself back into this lifestyle. But during that transformation in carnivore, autophagy took place. And I just feel like those are the taboo aspects where the medical field does not want you to know about. I think autophagy goes a long way.
sell. Dan, don't drink coffee and chocolate milk, and don't have salt, and don't eat chicken nuggets for 3 days. We're going to make a lot of money out of that. Can you imagine, imagine right now, just a snapshot, like click my fingers, like do the ultimate Thanos technique, but not destroy everyone, but not that bit. Just make it so everyone turns carnivore like now, and give it a month. How many nurses without jobs are there going to be? Can you just think? Because a lot of these jobs are quite routine, like, oh, blood pressure's a bit high, or someone has to test that, someone has to draw that person's blood. Oh, phlebotomists needs will go down drastically, maybe 20% the first month. By month 6, half the workforce is out. What are they going to do? We're all just going to be like these, I don't know, chi spirits that go around just not eating any fast food and be healthy and live out in nature and not have bad joints and not have to take drugs and things and medications. It's an interesting world. I mean, we could draw the same I'm not talking politically here really, but we draw about the world politics right now, whatever your thoughts might be. Imagine you just turned off all the wars immediately.
Mm.
The world would actually go to chaos.
Right.
So I think there is certainly a level of like, you have to have your head in the right space to sort of get healthy first. But there's also an element from Big Farm, Big Food, perhaps, that is trying to encourage it so we don't get into a state where we're not reliant on them, which, Charger Mopar Rick in the chat, he might be good friend Rick. He's been carnivore for God knows how long, like 42 years, 41 years. And he always talks about in his ride and talk videos that I love, by the way, I love them. He talks about, becoming individual, independent.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the guy next to you down the road has dog food and you don't. You swap the dog food for 10 eggs each morning that you have from the chickens that you have that lay. Stuff like that, like more on a micro scale. I think that's where a lot of the money is just dropping, because it's a big MLM scheme basically to fuel up like 5 massive big food companies in the world. So the same thing could be said for charities. How much good have they done? I love local charities. I will be the first person to give money to a local charity where I see where the money goes. But big charities where a lot of it is just taken by middlemen, no, I'm not seeing an outcome. This is my investment. This is something which I spent time to earn. I want to see the outcome. We're fortunate now we have things like fundraisers, GiveSendGo, GoFundMe, where we can actually support causes that do deserve it, So that you see that. You see the person's update. Like, there's a guy in Alaska, I couldn't eat enough meat, couldn't afford it, had some money. Okay, now he's lost like a few £100s. His life has changed. For the sake of maybe 1,000 people or whatever that have done it and all donated like $3-4, they've changed someone's life and it's made no impact to them at all. They wouldn't have even smelled that money. So I think that's where I like to go. I like to help individuals that truly deserve it. But, we're battling a lot for sure.
That's important, just the hospitality, philanthropy, just helping someone throughout this journey and just being a human being. That is an aspect that this way of living lifestyle definitely kind of exonerates it. It helps the next of kin. And I love the fact of what you're saying. When you give money to charity, you want to see where that cash is going. You want to make sure that it's going to the right entities. I mean, how many times that we've seen Dunkin' Donuts here in the States, they, can you give $1 here, this and that? Number one, you don't know where it's going. They have all of these, coffee shops all over the place. And then they use your money for a tax write-off. Yeah. They're not using their own for the charity. They're using yours. And we don't even know where that money's going. And like, you're probably right. It's lobbyists. They're giving it to them. Lawmakers. That's the beauty of having a community of carnivores. We think outside the box. Critical thinking is back at the forefront. And I want to say, Jonathan, thank you so much, man, for hopping on the pod, spitting facts, letting us know more about your world, man. And where can people find you?
Yeah, first of all, thanks so much for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. I'm glad people like you are making good quality, useful content that actually helps people out. Seems like a big ask nowadays, but a lot of it is confusion, it's noise, and this sort of channel definitely cuts through the noise. People can find me at carnivore-muscle.com. You'll see it there somewhere. If not, you'll find me Carnivore Muscle, which is the logo is up here, on YouTube and also Instagram sometimes when I'm on it. Usually I'm not. But that's the best place to find me. I do consultations, coaching, ebooks. Every now and then I might do a little offer or something fun. But yeah, I like to work with a small group of people. I like to collaborate with people like yourself that have a shared following and just revitalize the community. Because from what I've seen, your content certainly doesn't seem to be something which is made to be clickbaity or made to earn YouTube revenue. I make £100 per month on YouTube, which I offer out to my subscribers. Well, content creators like yourself, I join different channel memberships just because it pushes it forward. Because, someone else sees that, oh, this person's donated a bit of money, this person's helped or joining out the channel's membership, they support my cause or their cause. People feel value from that. I mean, the amount of emails I get is the amount of hate mail I get is disproportionate sometimes, but the amount of positive influence I can sometimes give people is astonishing. I'm often getting emails from people all over the world. I got an email recently which is 27 pages long from someone just telling me about their experience, and they wrote that email to me to read. They could just call me up on the phone, but no, they wanted to write it down, have it in writing. It was like a process in my own time and share what my thoughts were. So yeah, it's an amazing place, and I'm speaking at the Great British Meetup in UK, which will be in or near Glastonbury, and that'll be on the, I believe, 13th of June. And funny enough, I'm actually being home temporarily for a few people there, just accommodation basically, whilst I'm up there, from people I've never met before because they like my content. And in exchange, going back to that micro sort of sharing kind of thing, I'm giving them a few bags of salt, which is really expensive for them to buy over where they're from. So,
Nice.
you know, it all goes around, you know.
I love it, man. Listen, if you're ever in the States, especially New York, you let me know. I'll buy like 2 cows and we'll have a blast together. All right, brother?
Sure. That sounds good. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I have
it.
to do more collaborations in the future. It's been really good talking to you. Appreciate that.
Likewise. Absolutely. All right. We'll see you later.